interesting is for several decades, a large population was seen as a problem. And it is, in fact, China's one-child policy, which began in 1980 in all earnest, which has contributed to the situation today where their population is declining. From 2016, China has, in fact, allowed more than one child per family. They've been trying to incentivize 3 children in some parts of the country, but Chinese people are not taking the bait. What are the implications of all of this? And is this a global trend that we're going to see? Remember, China's not the only country facing this. Japan, South Korea, and other East Asian countries, countries in Europe as well, are facing the prospects of a dwindling population. Ajay Bagga, chairman of Elements Platform, with me today to speak on this issue. Suresh Goyal, former ambassador, also joining us. And we just want to get some perspective of the implications of what we've seen as news coming in from China. Mr. Bagga, great to have you on the show. Just your take now on these official figures. I think it's just a matter of time this year before India officially becomes the most populous nation in the world. There's some estimates that it will happen in April. Perhaps we're already there or close to it. What does it mean? A high population, a large population used to be seen as a bad thing. Has that perception changed?
No, definitely not, Tamanna. One thing is very clear. These numbers are based on annual sampling, and this sampling has finished as of early November in China. So probably as of today itself, India might be the most populous nation because it's mostly not taken the COVID-related deaths that have happened in November, December. But that's semantics. If you look at what is happening, uh, the having a young population, a working age population remains a big competitive advantage. India is going to enjoy that advantage for a couple of decades more before we start seeing an aging population. The great news is today, one-fifth of the youth of the world are young Indians. They represent a very optimistic cohort which will own the new economy, the new service economy. We will not grow the China way. If you look back to 1990, when both the economies started their takeoff journey, China in 1979, but by 1990, if you compare, both of us were in the 320 billion GDP range. Both of us were at $300 of per capita GDP. China has done stupendously over the last 32 years, where they've today become an $18 trillion economy. We are 5.4 times less at about $3.2 trillion. So somewhere the factory model, the overinvestment in infrastructure model of China worked. Now, today, for India to do that will be very difficult. We have done a great job with the PLI, but we will have to find our own model, Tamanna.
That's the comparison between India and China. But Ambassador Goyal, for the Chinese to not be the most populous nation in the world, what does that do to their, global standing? They are the factory of the world, and their cheap labor is part of the deal of what has made China such an attractive investment destination and allowed them to grow at this pace.
Tamanna, my own personal take on this is that a higher working population in the age group of say 25 to 30 or 40, while it was an advantage in the 90s and the end of the last millennium, with the development of artificial intelligence and automation, that advantage may soon be a thing of the past. That is number one. So I don't think that having a higher population of working hands is going to be an advantage anymore. On the other hand, if I look at the possible negative side of it all, we come across the issue of food security. We come across the issue of energy security, scarce resources like drinking water, which require processing and cleaning, land, urbanization. There will be a huge pressure on everything. Therefore, my sense is that having a higher population of youth has both advantages and disadvantages. But on the other hand, I would say that if we want, Mr. Bagga said about we will have to really think about an alternative model. And the only alternative model that comes to my mind is really which will depend upon a higher level of technology input, a higher level of automation, much bigger markets, including the export markets and the domestic market, and in that financing, capitalization. And in that sense, I think having larger number of hands, just like in the case of agriculture, may actually mean more division of resources. Therefore, I will actually keep my options open. I'll keep my take open. Let us see what happens in the near future. It all depends upon technology inputs, automation, artificial intelligence. The game is still on. Tamanna.
Mr. Bagam, there are a lot of reactions coming in terms of impact on the global economy as far as China is concerned, because two sets of data from China today. One is that their population has shrunk, and the other that their GDP is below expectation. The world is sort of betting on China to revive this year, isn't it? And in the long term, what does a shrinking Chinese population mean for the global economy?
No, very true. That is an issue. If you look at China's GDP for 2022, it's come in at 3% versus 8.4 for 2021, which was the COVID recovery number. But remember, for nearly 30 years, they grew at 10% plus. So as they became the factory of the world, they really led to nearly 50-60% of the annual global growth would come from Chinese growth. And today they are the biggest consumers. If you look at commodity after commodity, including agri-commodities like soybeans, they are the biggest consumers of cement, of copper, of aluminium, of steel, of iron ore, of coal, the biggest importers of oil in the world, the second biggest consumers of oil. So any Chinese slowdown has global ramifications. What will happen, as Ambassador Saab said very correctly, a lot of automation will come in. China has been trying to move up the value curve. Its labor costs are going up as the working age population shrinks. And these shrinkages are very big. You know, in the next 28 years till 2050, 110 million people will move out of the Chinese working age population. It's like one Europe of working age population goes out over 3 decades. That's the kind of things that are happening. So labor costs have been going up. That will mean a cost push inflation for the rest of the world. Second, if there is any slowdown in China, that has huge ramifications for the entire commodity exporting countries, their currencies, their trade balances. The third very big thing is who can take China's position as the factory of the world for the lower end at least. So there we have seen Bangladesh stepping up, Vietnam, Mexico doing some of it, and India definitely with the PLI scheme, especially, we have had some low-hanging fruit like electronics, consumer electronics and mobile phones, where now we are exporting billions of dollars worth of mobile phones. We'll have to move up the value chain. But again, what could be done with 30,000 workers, it's getting done with maybe 2,000 workers today. So creating those jobs will be an issue. A graying of China at $10,000 per capita or $12,000 has big issues for the Chinese pension funds, for their social security, and for their old age benefits as well, Tamanna.
I think we tend to look at the issue of population as rightly so at this point from the perspective of every individual country. But the conversation more and more is moving to a global population and the decline there. Ambassador Goel, I want your perspective on this. We're talking about China now and India versus China. India will be most populous. But in many parts of the world, and I said that briefly in my introductory comments, in Europe, in many parts of Asia, populations are declining. And this is set to be a global crisis when it becomes important on which country has the most demographics. Is this the space, the golden space for India's demographic dividend to kick in?
I don't know, Tamanna. We keep on hoping for all that to happen, but I think the whole idea of the value chains are changing. The whole idea of the production dynamics are changing. Now, for example, let us talk about uh, one example comes to my mind, USA. I was listening to somebody who is working on the artificial intelligence uh, in Central Omo lab, and he was basically painting a picture of millions of people, 30%, 40% population of the USA being idle because of the artificial intelligence kicking in, and therefore not being the right kind of jobs and enough jobs for the people who are not sufficiently skilled, and in any case, they won't be needed. Eventually, I think that the demographics and the technology will find a balancing point. Till such time, those people who are extra will be idling away at the beaches, enjoying themselves or not enjoying, but basically just passing time. Eventually, they will die off. People who really are needed in the country system will know the balancing point. Therefore, that balancing point may take decades to come, but it will come. Therefore, I'm not really worried about excess population or shortage population or growing population. What I'm worried about is where are we going to find the balancing point of technology versus the kind of the society we want. That is a tough one, and that there is no answer so far. Tamanna.
But if you have, like in China this year, more deaths than births, eventually you're going to be looking like an extinct species as humanity. A long time to go for it. Long time to go for it. Not happening tomorrow, day after, or maybe in any of our lifetimes. But
Yes,
we're on that path.
absolutely.
This is why, Mr. Bagga, I ask you about this demographic dividend. Eventually, just being around is going to be an advantage.
It will, and we don't need to worry about humanity unless Putin presses the nuclear button or something.
Oh, dear.
We will be about 11.2 billion as by the end of this century,
Yes.
which will be our lifetimes into two probably. So nothing to worry as far as the humanity is concerned, but the jobs are not there.
Right.
So you will have dole outs. You will have to take care of large portions of populations whom you can't meaningfully employ. So that new models have to come up. Maybe in 30 years, we are able to send people to space to colonize various other places. I don't know what the models will come out, but something will have to happen. Maybe there is a dramatic shift from populations, but it won't happen early. Today, if you look at where is the world growing in population, it's Africa. The replacement rate in Africa is 5, while it's under 2. 2.1 children per woman is is a normal replacement rate where the population stays steady. Africa is growing at 5, but the rest of the world, Europe is down to 1.2. So what Ambassador Saab said, already happening in Russia, already happening in Japan, where there are more people dying every year than are born. And despite the medical advances increasing the longevity, but the jobs are not being created. Jobs will, in an AI kind of environment, what are the kind of jobs that will be safe? Will be the very caregiving jobs, service-oriented jobs, where it is something that you can't train a computer to do or robot to do. But a lot of manufacturing might move to robots, and you would need a few brainy people to just program that. That is the risk, but I think that is another couple of decades away.
Right.
For India right now, I think we have to become a migration economy. I would say train lakhs of Indian engineers to go and migrate to Korea and Japan who are going to face this issue. We should train them in the nuances, in the culture. You need nurses. I was on a program with Dr. Devi Shetty recently, and UK would take our nurses, make them again certified, only then they would be allowed. Now, so many nurses are quitting in the West after the COVID that Indian nurses are getting just offers like anything, and so much so that India is going to have a problem of having adequate nursing staff. So there are options like that. Already 25 million NRIs are working abroad, sending in $100 billion a year. I think that can grow into a big segment. We can be suppliers of choice, sending people who are nuanced on the culture of the place. Otherwise, without migration, a lot of countries will face the shrinking population and not having enough workers to manage those countries' dependency. And there'll be only old people left in a lot of countries. That's again a 40-year scenario, not going to happen right away. But policies can be made because we won't be able to create manufacturing jobs
Right.
of that, and
No, but
agriculture will not.
it takes that much time to kick in. What headline we're reading out today in China is because of someone's policy decision in 1980. So in 1979, to be precise. So
Yes.
it takes that much time to make an impact
And
on
you
that
can't
scale.
reverse it.
You can't
It's
reverse
not
it.
reversible. It didn't reverse in Korea. It didn't reverse in Japan. They gave lot of incentives. Women want to work. They don't want to have children and sit at home. So it's a societal thing. As you increase the education and welfare, a big issue for
You
India
know,
is gender
it's of course gender equality and all of that, but one interesting statistic which I was looking at also coming in from China, the cost of raising a child to the age of 18 is 7 times the average income in China. And with that kind of burden, people just don't want to do it. They don't want to start families if they don't know if they can raise their children well. So
Absolutely.
a lot of these, factors have to come in. The Chinese government will pay you for your third child till he or she's 3 years, but what about the rest? So these have become big factors as well. Well, we'll take a stop here, a pause here on this very interesting discussion, which went into many futuristic directions. But thank you, Ambassador Goel and
Tamanna
Ajay Bagga.
dinosaurs did die. Tamanna dinosaurs did become extinct. We are dinosaurs.
Oh dear. I think the future of humanity is bright, and there are many right now thinking about making it multi-planetary. So we'll see. Maybe not all of those changes in our time, but we get to talk about it today. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Now, moving on to an interesting